Welcome to the Fortified Life podcast, where we learn how to develop a dependency on Jesus in the marketplace. From the boardroom to the bathroom, God is with you. Here's our host, author, speaker, teacher, encourager, stewardship coach, and my husband, the man they call Mr. Fortified, Jason Davis.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Fortified Life podcast, where we are passionate about developing a dependency on Jesus in the marketplace. I'm your host, Jason Davis, aka Mr. Fortify. Every single week, we bring on business owners, entrepreneurs, speakers, coaches, authors, all types of people that are passionate about putting God back in business. And it's no different this week. I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, our guest this week, I'm very excited to have on. Went to lunch with him offline, and he just poured out his heart, and we had quite a bit in common. But before I bring him on, let me introduce him to you. Benj Miller is a 10-time founder and CEO of System and Soul, a business framework to help leaders everywhere gain clarity, control, and breakthrough. His mission is to transform 25,000 companies by 2030 because small businesses are the lifeblood of our communities. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fortified Life, Benj Miller. Benj, what's going on, sir?
Thanks, Jason. I could say all those wonderful things about you at our lunch as well. It was just, you're infectious and joyous, and super glad to spend a minute with you again.
Absolutely. So, Benj, this may be like a continuation of our lunch just in front of everybody.
That'd be okay. That'd be okay.
I love it. Well, Benj, there's a lot that God has graced you to do. So kind of give us some of the backstory on your professional experience. We know you just didn't wake up and be a 10-time founder and then an active CEO. So talk to us about the journey.
No, yeah, it's literally almost 20 years ago to the day that I had my last real job, where I got a paycheck and a W-2 and all of that. And I had a boss that taught me kind of everything I didn't want to do if I ever led a company. And in a crazy story, glad to go into it if you want to. But one night we had while I was homeless, by the way.
Wow.
While I was homeless, we had an "I quit, you're fired" conversation. And that started me on my journey to kind of pave my own way. And one of the things that I held on to that gave me some sense of security in that time was, if this dude could be successful, how much more would I be blessed if I did it God's way? And that was reassuring to me. It wasn't this guy's an idiot and I'm smarter. It was, this guy's all over the map, and if I go and pursue this and like just simply follow Christ through it and follow biblical principles, how much more would I be successful? So that was what gave me the confidence in those days. Probably still gives me a lot of confidence, because it doesn't matter how long you've been in this game. This game is the continually figuring things out game, right? And so, yeah, I'm 20 years in and still have that first company. I'm very proud of it, but have started a bunch of others along the way. The latest, like you said, being System and Soul. And I'm all in. One of the questions you asked me is like, what big are you thinking about launching, working on? I'm like, maybe for the first time in my life, the answer is nothing. It's get all the distractions out of my way, because I'm on a mission.
Wow.
It's really cool.
Wow. I love that clarity. Benj, you said several powerful things. I'm going to try to digest them as best as I could. I think you've probably heard versions of this before, Benj, that people don't quit companies. They quit like a certain boss or a manager or leader. If you can, talk about your experience with that, and do you think that's a true statement, and is that kind of a sad mantra that exists in the marketplace?
Yeah, I think that it's mostly true. It's generically true.
Hmm.
It's not universally true. So there's lots of other reasons that people quit jobs, of course, but I do think it's probably the most predominant. We've done a lot of work on this um, over the last year, and we've landed on that there's 6 dimensions of compensation.
Mm.
And we tend to only think about, what's my salary and what's my benefits, but some of the other things that people care about are like, is this aligned? Like, do I feel like this is giving me purpose?
Yeah.
Is it giving me the flexibility that I need physically in life to do the other things that I want to do? Am I socially doing this with people that I enjoy doing it? Another interesting actual fact tied to that anecdote is that if you have somebody that you would say is your close friend at work, you're 3 times less likely to quit.
Wow.
Um, so, uh, but there's 6 dimensions of this of compensation, and so what really matters is understanding how you need to be compensated in that moment. And unfortunately, managers aren't having those conversations with their people. They're just assuming everybody's the same, and this
Mm.
is how much you get paid, and this is how much this, and this is how, and especially with these newer generations,
Yeah.
it's not all about money. And so you've got to come alongside them and understand what's important to them. And here's the crazy thing with this data, Jason, is it
Hmm.
changes in different periods of life.
Mm.
So you become a father or a mother, it's going to change. Your
Yeah.
kids leave the house, it's going to change. You got to send your kid to college. There's just different seasons where you value different things. But what that all comes down to is having an organization where we're not just asking, how do we hire the right person for the right job that we're in? We go and ask that person, like, what are you trying to do in your life? What's on your
Mm.
personal bucket list? What's on your professional ambition list? And how can we come alongside of you and partner you to grow you, to help you achieve those things? And now we're in a symbiotic relationship that nobody's going to leave that situation. Like you feel like you have a boss that cares for you, that is partnered with you and helping you achieve what you want to be and what you want to do in life. That's what we're trying to teach and encourage organizations to do, to really take on like a coaching culture with
Hmm.
their people. And it's 2 ways. Here's what I need from you, Jason, because I expect a lot of you, because I know you've got it in you. But also, like, what are you trying to do? Because I want to see your hopes and dreams and desires come to life.
Wow. A collaborative partnership, Benj, is what I hear you saying. Wow, that's huge. And I could definitely understand how that's a more comprehensive view of between that employee and the employer or the manager direct report relationship, having more depth and more breadth. My goodness, Benj. He's already dropping
100%.
nuggets of wisdom, ladies and gentlemen. Benj, the other thing that you brought up in your background, being a 10-time founder. Now, Benj, we know some people, they may start a company or two and then move on to other things, but you've done it 10 times. What are some lessons you can tell us? Because I think about the insurance company. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I probably need to sit down and really process that question, but I'll give you a few things that come top of mind.
Yeah.
One, I've done most of these businesses with other people, with
Mm.
partners.
Okay.
And there's probably 2 things that will trump all when it comes to giving yourself the best chance of success.
Yeah.
The first is, who are you doing this with? And
Mm.
are you
Okay.
super clear with what everybody's bringing to the table? What happens if they don't bring those things to the table? And how do we get out of this if something changes in our life? Like
Mm.
having those conversations up front and being crystal clear,
Yeah.
just removes ambiguity along the way. Uh, and then having conversations when things do change. The
Mm.
second thing is just, how are we could have the greatest mousetrap ever made, but if we don't have distribution, if we don't know how we're going to acquire customers,
Mhm.
you are constantly fighting uphill. You can have the best culture, best financial management, all the things that we talk about all the time. But if you don't have a clear path to acquire customers, it's really hard to have a sustainable business.
Wow. I feel like I just got like a 2-minute MBA binge. Oh my God. A lot more to unpack. That could be a third book, Benj. I'm just saying. I don't know.
Yeah, no, lessons from 10 at bats. They were not all successful.
Sure.
So I don't want to give the wrong impression there because I fell on my face more than once.
Right. Wow. That's something to chew on right there. And Benj, I can tell you this much. I know you're like laser focused, but if you ever write that, you have a customer ready, willing,
All
and able
right.
to buy. You
All
have at
right.
least one buyer of that book if you do feel led to write
There we go. All
it.
right.
Benj, a major theme in us sitting down having lunch, and even as we're talking during this interview, big theme is relationships. And for those of us who are people of faith, we know everything starts with our personal relationship with God. With all the things God has graced you to do in business, what was a major turning point in your life that God used?
Yeah. Well, probably the absolute biggest. In 2009, we grew 300%.
Wow.
I'd have to do the math. I think I was 30, 31. And so through that air quotes success, I had unknowingly allowed I visually picture it as these sticky notes being put on my chest. And
Mm,
it says leader, creative, young, successful, entrepreneur, like all of these like labels that either I was putting on myself or the world around me was putting on me due to
yeah.
these circumstances. The end of that year, I felt that I needed to change the relationship with our biggest sales channel,
Hmm.
and they didn't like the way that went down. Immediately cut us off. Immediately the business was burning cash. Um, I was almost an accidental entrepreneur. I was very clear I wanted to go out on my own, but it was one of those like, oh look, I have an employee. Oh, I've got multiple employees. Like it was all kind of accidental, and as they say, success covers a multitude of sins, right? So I didn't really know what I was doing, but all of a sudden I had a business that was, a train wreck,
Wow.
and it wasn't going to make it.
Hmm.
And I what happened is because my identity had attached these labels, when those labels were no longer true or no longer felt true, it was like the rug was pulled out from under me and I had no identity. I didn't know who I was.
Mm.
I had an awesome marriage, my wife at home. I had a brand new, super healthy baby boy. And I had like just, I don't want to say no reason to live. It probably wasn't quite that bad, but it was really dark.
Wow.
Like everything that I had tried to build like felt like a sham. And so I'm sitting at a table one morning with my coach, and I'm trying to get him to like, hey, fix my business issue, right? Like we've got to get this thing, we've got to get cash, we've got to pay bills, we've got to figure out what we're doing, all these things. And I'm also kind of staring off into space, and he kind of taps the table and says, Benj, at the end of the day, every man has to be able to answer three questions. Who am I? Why do I matter? And who is my audience?
Mm.
And Jason, I just looked at him like, don't be an idiot right now. Like, I have business problems. And he said, come on, I'll work with you. Let's take it. It's easier if we take it in reverse order. Who is your audience?
Mm.
Jason, I grew up in church. My dad was a pastor. I immediately, right away, I knew the Sunday school answer,
Hmm.
and there was nothing in me that wanted to give that answer because that answer was not working for me in that moment.
Mm.
But I sat there and I thought through all the options, and every option that I came up to as an answer for that question felt fragile.
Mm.
And that's when I understood like building your house on sand versus on the rock,
Yeah.
because every single answer I could come up with, it's like, man, one rain comes and that the sand washes and the house falls. And so finally I look how I'm saying, it's got to be my Father in heaven. And he said, okay. So second question, why do you matter? And I had no answers. Like I said, awesome marriage, house, wife, all the things were fine, but my identity was gone. And I'm like, I don't know. I've got nothing. And I couldn't come up with an answer. He says, all right, well, you're a marketer. Let's put it in marketing terms. How do you know what something's worth?
Mm.
And I started to feel in my soul where he was going. I'm like, man, it's whatever the market will pay for it. And he said, what did your heavenly father pay for you?
Mm. Wow.
And Jason, that was the moment where, like, I mean, straight tears. It took me a little longer to answer that third question because I wanted it to be in my language, like
Hmm.
a language that matters to me. Who am I? But it's
Yeah.
based on a heavenly father that paid it all for me, right? So that was the moment where I understood that everything in my life flows out of, we talk about worldviews, right? But it all
Hmm.
comes out of your identity. What's your worldview of your own identity?
Mm.
The other way that I've learned to talk about this, because it helps people kind of get the picture, but who has permission to sign your report card?
Mm.
And what is the criteria in which you're being graded? And man, if you get clear on those as a man, um, you're building your house on a rock. And when you're built on a rock, then you're able to show up in different circumstances fortified, right? That's what it's all about. And if you're fortified for yourself, then you can show up for other people in the way that you need to. So that I think was the biggest, if you want to talk about a moment in life that was both crystallizing for me as a man and as me in business, that was it. That was the big moment.
My God, Benj, I appreciate your vulnerability and your transparency, man. Um to just share where you were at that time and just you things that happened so quickly and you didn't really know. And also thank God, Benj, I want to call this out. Thank God for coaches,
Yeah.
men and women and people that God puts in our life. And we'll talk about this in a second with System and Soul, but Benj, just comment for a second on just the power of coaching. It came out in your testimony, but I think sometimes, and we know the coaching industry is growing and we see all this data, but Ben, just talk about just, guys, here's the crux of coaching. It's not a gimmick, and here's what it can do if you, kind of put your guard down and lean into it.
Yeah. Did you play sports growing up?
Absolutely.
What'd you play?
I played football, basketball, and ran track.
All right, basketball was my sport, so let's camp there for a minute.
Yeah, love it.
So you think about a coach sitting on the sideline of a game.
Hmm.
They're not coming in, they're not subbing themselves in the game,
Yeah.
right? So they're not coming in to bail you out, but they know you
Yeah.
and they know the game and they can see the game in a different way because they're not in the game.
Hmm.
I love the line, you can't read the label from inside the jar, right?
Yeah.
We're all inside the jar, we're in the game. And so we need that perspective from the outside to help us see what's going on.
Hmm.
And when they know me personally and they know the game, then they can speak to both and they can recognize like where they're overlapping. Is this a Benj problem? One of the things I love about my coach is his view on coaching is that every business problem has a root in the heart of the leader,
Mm.
which is really annoying a lot of times because I just want the like give me the answer that doesn't involve me. But it's going back to, you've got this problem with this person and blah 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 blah. And well, why haven't you done something about that, Benj? Oh crap, now it's back about me, right? But that coach on that sideline, he's been there, he's seen a lot more games than you. He's watching the game, he's watching the scoreboard, he's watching how you're reacting. Those are all things that it's really hard to do when you're in the game, because
Mm.
when you're in the game, you're trying to make the next play, right?
Yeah.
And you're in there with your team. So I love a coach. I'm probably overly eat my own dog food on this one. I've been with the same coach for 16 years. Plus I've got a fitness coach. Plus I've got a counselor. Plus
Yeah.
I like doing the work because I know that like investing in myself, this is what entrepreneurs do, is they bet on themselves,
Yeah.
right? We can go bet on the market. We could take a job and bet on our 401k, but we're like, that's boring. We're going to bet on ourselves. Here we go. But to do that, we've got to constantly be leveling ourselves up. And it's really hard to do that without external perspective.
Yeah. My goodness. And Benj, and I think this is the perfect. We've kind of been teasing it and dropping little hints and nuggets, but the way that you talk about how coaching has impacted you, this puts us squarely in the conversation of the work you do with system and soul. So, Benj, talk to us about um, just the why behind why you started System and Soul and how you all work with clients.
Yeah. So what I found out the hard way is that as an entrepreneur, I was naturally bent to run a company with a lot of soul. I really cared about my people. I really cared about the identity of the organization, where we were going, kind of the mission, the culture that we had, and making sure that that was just what we wanted it to be and not kind of an accidental byproduct. So, and I thought it was great. And one day I had a coach come into the business and kind of do an analysis because I wanted to take the business to the next level and I didn't even know what that meant. And so anyway, they come in and it took like less than an hour. In the very first hour, I realized that what I thought I had built that was so awesome, other people were experiencing in a very different way.
Mm.
Tell it like this, Jason. Everybody works in a two-story building. There's the story you're telling yourself, and then the story everybody else is experiencing. And that hit me, man. And it was like, I'm like, we had an office with, I mean, this was before like foosball tables were cliche for culture, but like legit, we had a foosball table. We had this cantilevered conference room that looked freaking stunning. We had a climbing wall that fell into a ball pit, like in the middle of our office. We had all this stuff, and less than an hour into this kind of consultation with this outside consultant, I realized that people just wanted clearer job titles.
Mm.
They wanted to execute work and know what they were doing, like have an actual process, not just try and reinvent it every time. They wanted to know like how they were individually being measured so they could go home at the end of the day feeling like they won. So it was a lot of fun and it was really uplifting, and I was pouring into their leadership and their soul. But there were a bunch of systems missing from the business. So bringing those systems in the business absolutely changed my life. Later on, I became, those systems helped me so much. I started helping other people. This was back, I did it through EOS. A lot of your listeners will know EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. But as I became an implementer of that, I was taking this system into these companies, and there was just something flat about it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was something that it didn't. They weren't coming alive like we came alive. And what I realized is the system worked for us because we had all these other components already working for us. And so in the beginning of 21, I was sitting at my desk. I knew I was parting ways with EOS, but I was trying to wonder. I was like, literally, I don't know what I'm going to do. I love doing this work that I get to sit with the senior leadership team, create space. I think the space is sacred for them to have these conversations, no matter what the content is in it, and lead them in those times. And no other way to say it but divine download. It was like the name, the model, the mandate on my leadership, the mission to hit 25,000 organizations this decade. All that kind of appeared, and the rest is history.
Wow. That is huge, Benj. Hence, system and soul. I
That's it.
love that. So, Benj, if talk about customer profile. So, the type of companies that you all work with, how do they engage with you? I understand that people can, I think you have distribution through people becoming certified
Yep.
coaches. So, what types of problems or opportunities do people typically come to System and Soul with, and what type of experience can they expect to have?
Yeah. All right. So, most like our ideal is a stage two company, and
Mhm.
stage two company is like kind of post they've figured out product market fit. They at least have a little bit of a handle on their go to market strategy. But they've come through that innovation stage, which is kind of the stage one, the 0 to 1. I call it the barbarian phase because you just gotta figure stuff out and keep going and keep figuring stuff out, right? But now they've figured some stuff out. now the team has grown, and what's happening, and this is a transition into my book,
Mm-hmm.
but we talk a lot about renegade founders, and it requires that renegade founder energy to get through that stage one. But
Yeah.
then they hit the founder gap, and the founder gap is really, really frustrating, and it's where they can't do it all anymore. You think about growing a team, and most founders start by growing, it's the founder and then 10 people that do great work, right?
Yeah.
But the founder's the one making all the decisions, making all the bets, creating the strategy, probably getting most of the customers, probably really involved with the product and the research and development and innovating that. And so they become the bottleneck for the whole business.
Mm.
And it's almost important that they were the bottleneck because they were the secret sauce in the beginning. But now all those strengths are the things that are holding them up from being the next level. And everything that you will go read out there, Jason, is going to tell that founder, here's how you grow up. You
Mm.
lose that renegade spirit, and you just, you turn into a founder, and then you get other people to blah, 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 blah. And the whole premise of Renegades, the book that we wrote, is like, please don't do that. The
Mm.
world needs
Okay.
your renegade spirit. Your
Wow.
renegade spirit was birthed in you. It is you, and it's not you just for this last season that you were in. The world needs that renegade spirit. So how do we get you through the founder gap? And
Yeah.
the trick there is to turn you from renegade founder to renegade leader. And so what
Mm.
does a renegade leader look like in an organization? And a lot of it has to do with, empowering other people to make some of those decisions, do some of the work that you were doing. But one of our fears, founders have two fears that hold them back in this. The first one is they won't do it like I'll do it. So the first
Mm.
thing that we help come in is help them crystallize and get out of their head the things that actually matter to them and are filters for them as they're making decisions, so that other people can grow the company and make the decisions like the founder would, like empowering that like, now we can call it like an AI model. Like the founder
Yeah.
has an AI model in his head, and we want to give that model to the rest of the organization, and we can help get that out of them and pass it to the organization. The second thing that founders really struggle with to move from renegade founder to renegade leader is back, here we go, full circle back to an identity complex of, well, if I'm not doing those things that I was doing that created all this value, am I even valuable to this organization anymore? And
Yeah.
this is where we can see leaders that do check out too early, or that do kind of let it go on autopilot and walk away because they've got a pet project. They've got 5 pet projects that they're going on because this organization can't handle all of their renegade energy, right? So if they're
Mm-hmm.
not going to be disruptive, if they're not going to be an arsonist to their own organization, then they've got to, spend time away from it. So a lot of what we do, we only work with the senior leadership team. We'll do a little bit of coaching on the side, but it's really about walking them through a process to implement what we call the 4 tools for confident execution. Because everybody wants to get to strategy, but the problem, if
Mm-hmm.
you get to strategy and you don't have confidence that you can execute, it's really demoralizing to the whole organization.
Mm.
So if we can get going with 4 tools for confident execution, then we spend some time packaging up, who are we? How are we going to make decisions? What do we want the culture to be? Where are we going to place our bets for the future of this organization? Get all that in alignment, then we can empower the team to go execute. And that's a lot of the work we do.
Wow. That is huge, Benj. And you went right into the Renegades, one of the books that you have. A second book, because I think if I'm picking up and reading the tea leaves correctly, Benj, a big part of what you do is helping people see clarity as well. So you've got the Clarity Field Guide, I believe, is what
Yeah.
it's called. So talk to us about that resource and what was the thought process behind writing that book in addition to Renegades.
Yeah. So Clarity Field Guide was first, and it was really about personal clarity.
Mm.
There's some things that, if you're an entrepreneur, founder, leader, that you can pull out of there for clarity for your organization. But it comes from the idea that, like, people have been telling people for years, like, go take a clarity break, go take a clarity break. And the best I heard was go into the woods with a notepad, leave your phone at home and, see what happens. Right. Well, a lot of people need a little more structure than that, a little more guidance. And so what we did is we pulled in what we called the creator cycle, but the creator cycle is really a reflection of what we see in nature in the 4 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And that energetically, as entrepreneurs, as leaders, as humans, we go through these cycles on both a macro and a micro. But the book talks about that. There's a very quick 1-page kind of flowchart assessment to help you figure out what season am I in right now. And then the whole back half of the book is basically a question for you to sit and process while you're in that season. They're season appropriate questions. So the subtitle of the book is The Answers No One Else Can Give You.
Okay.
Right. And so it requires you to sit down and contemplate. But it's really, that seasonality is important because you don't want to be fighting your own energy to answer a question that's not right to answer in the season you're in.
Wow, that's good, Benj. My God, folks, Benj is just giving all types of gold to us today. Benj, we're almost at time here. You've talked about your books. You've talked about how you founded System and Soul. You talked to us about a turning point in your life and your professional background. Benj, I would say in 2024, you said you're laser focused, so not necessarily working on something new, but what are you excited about for this year in 2024?
I'm really excited about the traction that we're seeing in the market with people resonating with people that want to lead their businesses with System and Soul, and they've just never had somebody to bring that conversation and a kind of a guide and a way to do that into their business. So it's tons of fun, and it feels like heaven's kind of opened up on us this year and lots of opportunity. So just doing our best to steward through that opportunistically.
Very cool. Well, Benj, before we go, where can people connect with you, reach out to you on social media? Because I think you've pulled them in now, Benj. Now they want to know what do I do next, and how can I reach out to them?
Yeah. All right. So I'll give you 2 places. I'm on LinkedIn, semi-active there. So give me a couple days to reply, but I will reply. And the other place I would lead everybody to is the261.com. So every work day, send out they're reminders, they're tips, they're questions, but it's most of them are nothing new, Jason. It's the things that we need reminded of as leaders. And I had all these things like best practices. Like as a leader, I know I'm supposed to do these bunch of things, but I had no way of like organizing them. So I sat down, put them on a calendar and say, hey, here's the things I want to remember, the tips I want to remember, the things I need to do as a leader, and put those on a calendar. So there's 261 work days in most years. And so it's the261.com.
Love it. Love it. And folks, we'll have all of Benj's information and resources in the show notes. So don't you worry. We will have them for you. Benj, can't thank you enough for stopping by on the Fortified Life. Man, I've been blessed, and I know for a fact the listeners will be blessed hearing this conversation.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason.
Well, folks, you know how we leave things here on the Fortified Life. Don't compartmentalize your faith in the marketplace. And from the boardroom to the bathroom, God is with you. We'll see you next time on the Fortified Life podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Fortified Life podcast. You can catch us live on Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time and on demand. Check out fortifiedlifepodcast.com for more details. To learn how to live out your faith in the marketplace, grab a copy of Jason Davis's book, Fortified, Being Rooted in God's Plan for Work and Business, available on Amazon.